It's the Digital Babble with your host, Flipper. Colorful commentary on your photography. Seen on fingerlakes1.com.
Hey everybody, it's the Digital Babble here, live on fingerlakes1.com, fingerlakes1.tv. I'm your host, Flipper. This is the Digital Babble. It's a photography and Photoshop talk show where I talk about photography techniques and doing different things in photography and then taking stuff into Photoshop or your image editor and making some changes to it. So that's what this show is all about. That's what I do. It's kind of like my side job, I guess. So this week, how do I put this? I had a question from somebody who is trying to set up a home studio to do production photography. Basically, they need to set up something where they can do something very, very quick, very, very easy, very, very simple to generate a lot of small objects. I think I can probably find something that's about the size. So saying an object like this, okay, so maybe they're selling like these in a catalog. And basically they want to do this for eBay or for whatever. And a lot of eBay people could benefit from this. Now you can use your iPhone, you can use a camera, you can use your point and shoot. I mean, it really doesn't matter. This whole studio setup is very, very simple. And I think that's what we're going to focus on this week is just this real basic introduction to product studio kind of setup. That way we can kind of work into maybe building something a little bit bigger, a little better, and what to do next or what is our next step. So really, that's really where I'm going to head with the show, I think. So first off, this is the Digital Babble. We are live on fingerlakes1.tv, fingerlakes1.com every Wednesday night, 7 p.m. If you want to give me an email, we love to get your images and we'll review your images, critique them, take them into Photoshop, maybe do a little something with them. You can write me a message, ask questions. You can send your emails to thedigitalbabble@gmail.com. And I get those, and throughout the week, then I kind of compile them and figure out what we're going to do, and then here they are on the show. So you can also go check out our website or my website. It's tdbny.com, and you can go check out some of the stuff that's on there, like the previous shows. Mostly it's for the previous shows and some different how-tos here and there, but I'll probably put this up on the how-to, try to take a little bit better photos of how I did it and how I set it up. Now, and like I said, this week is going to be about setting up a home product studio. And like I said, this is really geared towards those people that are trying to sell smaller items on eBay. They want to get good pictures, but they're really not looking to hire somebody to, spend thousands of dollars to try to get good pictures to sell. So, what are some really good things that you could do with like just some basic stuff at home and really get some decent photos to try to sell your products, put the best face you can on your product without violating any legal issues like copyright or anything else like that. I've heard of a few people getting in trouble for taking pictures from different people that have made pictures of different products and said, oh, this is really what the product is. And that's really a copyright issue. So take your own photos, and that's usually the safest and easiest bet. So there's my best tip of advice for that first out. Really, now, why set up a home studio? So let's really explore what a home studio can do for you. So saying you're going to sell this pencil, and you're going to sell 1,000 of these on eBay, and you want to show that they're a number 2, they got this little writing on it. I think it was Geneva Regional Health System. Let's find something else here. How about this little Buddha dude? Or actually, let's do Snoopy. Snoopy's fun. So maybe you got a bunch of these little Snoopy guys. Snoopy's fun. I like Snoopy. Hi. So saying you're going to sell a bunch of these different characters from Peanuts. Okay, and they're going to be different colors, and they're going to be different shapes and sizes and so on and so forth. So we want to make a home studio that we can properly capture this and put it in its best light. So what we can do now from a simple standpoint, we don't have to go out and spend $1,000 on a studio. We don't have to go out and spend a lot of money. We can start very simple and very straightforward and very small and work our way into something a little bit bigger. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, let me start by flipping over to the slideshows. It might take a second to load here. There we go. Okay, so basically, starting with a blank slate this week, really the whole idea behind a good home studio is the fact that you can work with it quickly, efficiently, get the pictures off the camera, and then photo edit them to get them to where you want them. And that's really the key with a good home studio, especially for people that are doing eBay or Craigslist or whatever you might be selling on. So, working our way into this here. So we got our little Snoopy dude that we're going to be using as our example. So here's what our studio setup might look like. So we have really quick here. I picked 3 different products. I picked a USB drive. You can see that center photo at the bottom. A shot glass from St. Martin's, and then a cell phone from Verizon over on the right there, which just happens to be my cell phone. So, and then now what you see here is the entire studio setup. This is the entire studio setup right here. I've got 2 cardstock pieces of paper. One I cut in half to use for the base or the bottom. Another one I folded in half to use as the background. And then that other half a sheet I'm using as a light reflector to add more light to the scene. So that right there is my studio setup that I did every single shot in here after this. Now, this whole setup probably costs, I don't know, maybe 50 cents for the paper. And then that little device there, that little contraption there is, I found it at a garage sale. And it's just a pair of alligator clips on a pole with some adjustable arms. So it allows me to manipulate things. I used to use it when I was soldering together wires, or if I was soldering a board or some other thing. It was an extra pair of hands. Really helped out a lot. But I found a new purpose now that I'm doing photography. I found that this can be used as a great holder for small stuff or macro stuff. Where I'm trying to get in nice and close, but I need to shine a little bit more light in one area or another of the photo. So that's what I got. So this is your basic setup. You got a background, you got a base, you got a reflector, you got light coming from somewhere, and you got to make sure to have light coming from somewhere. I basically said I'm not going to add any other light other than the light coming from the light kitchens. Light kitchens. Oh, what a backward screw up that was. The light coming from the kitchen lights, I was just going to use that and the reflector. And then if I wanted to add a little something else, I had that flashlight that I have in this picture here. Literally, I'm shooting this right in my kitchen on my marble slab. I'm not getting any fancy dancy kind of setup here. It's literally just kind of going, okay, let's set up something that would be like a studio and make it easy to Photoshop out the bad stuff, keep the good stuff, and then get it onto eBay, right? So, that's my setup. That's my setup right there. Nutshell right there. Okay. So that being set up that way, you might think to yourself, which is what I thought of myself last night when I was doing this. I was like, oh, this is probably partially kind of overly simplified, so on and so on and so on and so on. And then I thought about it. That's probably the reason why it works as well as it does, because it is simplified. I think the only thing I might have wanted to add to that setup is a directional light, something that on a little light stand, put it over on the right side. Let me see, pull that shot up again. So instead of having the reflector on the left per se, I would have the light over on the left and then the reflector over on the right to get rid of some of or soften some of the shadows. That would be the only caveat that I have here, where I would be like, I really think that I should probably take and, modify the setup just a touch. So keep that in mind. Having a directional light source right on top of your subject is probably a lot better than taking the ambient light provided by overhead lighting or coming from a window necessarily in this scenario. So maybe like a little lamp or a directional lamp or one of those gooseneck lamps. Wonderful. Get a nice high-powered CFL light in there, like a 90-watt equivalent or a 100-watt equivalent. Put that right there, shine it across the front of your subject, and then bounce it off that light card and back into the scene. And you can get some really amazing shots without spending a ton of money. I mean, tops. I think maybe if you add the light in there, you're probably talking maybe $12 for this setup. And you can use your iPhone, you can use your iPad. It doesn't matter what you use for the photo, as long as you know how to shoot with it and you can shoot with it sharply. Those are the two things that you want to keep in mind here. You want to be able to shoot your product. You want to make sure that they're good quality photos. You don't want to skimp. You don't want to get like, oh, geez, I got my cell phone here and it's only a 1 megapixel camera and it doesn't really focus very well. Plus my thumbprint's on the lens. Yeah, I would avoid that. But if you got an iPhone and you clean your lens before you even start shooting, you can get some really amazing shots. So why set up a home studio, or why have some of these odds and end parts sitting around like, card stock and maybe, a couple of different reflectors? Why build a reflector out of aluminum foil? Because it reflects more light. So those are some of the things that I'm going to try to answer in this whole show here. So why build it? Because you enjoy shooting photography and you want to set up a catalog, or you want to set up an eBay, sell stuff on eBay. Maybe you're helping a friend. Maybe you just enjoy shooting macro. This is a great setup for macro as well. If you really get right into the whole, right down to earth, right in there, blowing things up to be bigger than life. So there's a lot of reasons to do it. Maybe you're in need of product shots because you're starting your own business and you don't have the budget to pay for a photographer. I know that sounds like I'm cutting off my nose despite my face, but I really do think that by the end of the day, there is a need for a photographer. Like saying if you had to produce, say, 1,200 products in a matter of maybe a week, okay? You're going to hire a bunch of photographers who know how to do home studio setups, and you're going to give them different brands, and you're going to go send them, and you're going to pay for them and get them to shoot all that and be done with it, okay? That's where the professional side photographer comes in. This home stuff, these onesie twosie things. Oh geez, I'm going to sell Mr. Woody here on eBay, or Mr. Pac-Man. Is this maybe this is Miss Pac-Man. Maybe Miss Pac-Man and Woody are going to go on eBay, and I'm going to try to get $1 million for each of these. It depends on what you're trying to accomplish. What is your goals and objectives? And if you know me in real life, you'll know that I really kind of orientate myself to what is the purpose. Okay, so what is the purpose for you shooting these product shots? There must be a purpose other than you like it. If it's just down that you like it and you want to do kind of artsy things with it, be my guest. But if you have a need, then that kind of drives you a little differently. So you're interested in learning that type of photography, learning how light works. You can work in the small with Woody or whoever and set up this little home studio and start learning how light reacts to different things, like a reflector, a background, And that's the other thing you can use your home studio for, is experimentation. Before you get out in the field and you actually shoot something, you can actually prepare and actually try it a few times. So that's the other thing about having a little home studio set up, where you can just kind of sit, relax by yourself, or, maybe with a friend over a cup of tea or a beer or whatever you drink. And you just kind of sit down and you go, okay, let's see, what do we want to do with this? Okay, well, let's take Woody, we'll take a light and the reflector. And what happens when we put the reflector in, when we take the reflector out, it really gets kind of fun, because it gets very experimental after a while. So that being said, those are the reasons why to have a product studio. What can we do? What do you need to set up that product studio? So let's take you through all the parts again. So I'm going to pull up that slide one more time, and just to make sure that I'm clear about it. Okay. What do you need for a product studio? You can start with something as simple as this: some cardstock paper. I got 2 sheets of cardstock paper, one folded in half, one cut in half. One of the halves that are cut in half is the base, the folded one is your background, and then the other half of the cut one is your reflector. Boom. You have all 3 things that you need to get a nice segregated or separated photo of a product without having too much fuss or too much muss. So it really is a simple, straightforward, here it is, put it down and start shooting. You can carry this in a little briefcase or a little carrying case or whatever, anywhere you go, and you have your product studio with you. It's kind of neat. It's something simple, very easy. I think the only thing that I might want to say that I would have added to this is probably maybe a little white gaffer tape that looks like paper, or maybe like a paper tape, so that I could tape those edges or the corners where they meet the background, so that it was a little more stable, because I mean, this was kind of a little flimsy. So keep in mind, this is on the cheap, the DL, you know, it's going to be really not professional grade, but it works. So we're going to need light. We're going to definitely need some type of light. Now, in a lot of these shots, I use the ambient light from the kitchen. The lights are on overhead. It came down, hit the reflector. The reflector bounced light into the scene a little bit, bounced it around. The ambient light coming from the top was definitely more direct, but lit the scene fairly well. Everything was white, so it bounced light all over the scene that I was trying to take, the item I was trying to take, and thus giving me a nice little setup. So you got to have light. Now, if you want to get a little more creative, get some directional light. In other words, get a light on a bendable head so that you can shine light into the scene wherever you want. So like saying, if you want a little more 3/4 light going down at the object, and then bouncing it around the cards, and, you know, around on the cards, the bounce card, and in the background and off the base, and lighting all the different nooks and crannies so you can see it, you know, it's very clear. Okay, that's when you start getting into, okay, I need a light. Okay, well, Home Depot or Lowe's or Walmart or wherever you shop, you should be able to find a gooseneck light that you could easily have with a nice base that you plug in, put in a CFL, and make sure it's a high-powered CFL so you got plenty of light to work with, and you can shoot anywhere, literally. Okay. Also with the, really with this whole setup is, it really just takes a little bit of creative elbow grease to get from point A to point B. You're starting with nothing, you're going to get something. And why I'm mentioning that is because really the creative elbow grease is really what makes this fun. Okay. I mean, in my mind, I don't know about your mind, but in my mind, it makes it fun because when I see a challenge, I'm like, oh, I'm not getting enough light here, I'm not getting enough light there. How do I fix that? Well, I'll make another reflector, or I'll add another light, or I'll change this. And all of a sudden you start working through. After a couple months, you're like, I'm shooting this and I'm shooting that. I like this a little better. I like that a little better. It can always be added and improved on as you go through time. Always. The person who wrote me this email said, I really like watching your show. I think that was the first statement. The second statement was, I love it when you get a little philosophical and positive talking. It's almost like you're trying to encourage me on to do more. That's what this show is about. It's not about me per se. Okay. It's about me sharing knowledge. I like that, that's why I do this. But it's really more about you and you getting out there and shooting and producing some really neat stuff. And that's kind of what I would like to get back from you, is I want to hear from you, and let me know how you're doing with different things. I want to see some of the pictures you've taken. That's what the beauty of this is. We can be, kind of these anonymous friends per se, and then we can kind of go back and forth and be like, I really like this shot. Oh my god, look at how beautiful this shot is. I like this, but I could see that we had a little problem with like dapples of light coming through the trees, so the exposure got a little weird. Okay, next time maybe a reflector, or maybe next time change the location or whatever. And it just kind of becomes this kind of rolling ball of creativeness. And that's what I love doing. And that's why I say creative elbow grease is really where this project is at. You can come up with so many different ways to take products. You could do this with all bed sheets. You could do this with white towels. You could do this with vinyl. You can do this with plastic. You could do this with acrylics. You could do this with so many different materials. You could do it with cement. Okay. I mean, cement being, as unpliable as it is, you can actually set up a neat little home studio type thing with a couple bricks and a little bit of elbow grease and a little bit of creative elbow grease. And you can make this little whole kind of like, stacked up home studio that, it just lets just enough light in. It bounces around. A perfect product shot. So keep that in mind. Creative elbow grease. I know I'm preaching, so I'm going to stop now. So that's really the stuff that you kind of need to start off with is a background, a base, something for it to sit on, the product to sit on. You're going to need probably some type of reflector, and you're going to need a light source. Well, and the camera, of course, but and the camera doesn't matter so much. Honestly, it really doesn't. A lot of people are like, well, I don't like people with iPhones. JJ will accuse me of that all the time, you know. My good friend JJ, he's an amazing guy, and always knows when to tell me that I'm being too harsh on iPhone people. But really, you can do this with anything. You can do this with your Android phone. You can do this with your iPhone. You can do this with your camera phone on your cell phone. But the biggest thing is that you need to have enough megapixels, and you want to make sure that you can focus on the object as close as you're going to get to fill the frame. And you're going to want to make sure that it meters good in low light. That's about it. You know, and then once you get past that, hey, now it's time to shoot away. I've watched somebody with a setup like this. It's this really simple setup. Shoot enough photos to fill a probably 30-page catalog of little 3x2, 2x3 inch pictures on a bigger page. 20, 30 page in an afternoon. Okay. And that's from shooting to working on them in Photoshop and then getting them on a page and then start writing the descriptions. They were on to writing the descriptions that day. That's how easy, that's how simple this is. A fun thing to do. And it's great to use this same setup, like I said, to learn different aspects of photography. So let's talk a little bit more about light source, because one of the things that I think a lot of people don't comprehend with this. So here's the first product shot. Here is my cell phone. I added a little extra light with my LED flashlight. You can tell because it's bouncing off the bounce card and it's bouncing right into the shadow area. And you can see where I got the blue shadow down there, down at the very bottom. You can see I introduced a color cast. I really didn't think I was, but when I reviewed the picture later, I'm like, oh yeah, there is a blue kind of color cast to it. So I didn't really care for this shot so much, but this gives me a good point of the light source and what you need for the light source. The bigger the light source, the softer the shadow. It's kind of a general rule of thumb, okay? If you're really looking for harsh shadows, you want a smaller light source. If you're looking for soft, fluffy shadows, something that's not so predominant, you need a bigger light source. So keep that in mind when you're working with like getting your lamp set up or whatever. You might have to diffuse that with maybe some see-through vinyl, like what they make vinyl jackets out of or something. A real thin piece, something white, something that's really thin that allows light through. And you put that just in front of that light and it'll soften that whole thing up nice and beautifully and make the light source that much bigger. So keeping in mind the size of objects versus the size of your light. If your object is exactly the size of your light, you're going to get a 1-to-1 ratio. If it's not so much, it's maybe the light is twice as big as your object, you're probably going to get nice, soft, fluffy shadows. If your light is half the size of your object, you're going to get these really harsh shadows. So keep that in mind. Light source, size object, the whole nine, all relative. Play around, learn it, get it. So that first product shot with the cell phone, that was kind of neat. Keep in mind, it was just kind of a quick shot. And you'll notice in like this next shot, I really like this one a lot better. I got rid of the flashlight, so there's no blue color cast. So notice there's still some Photoshop cleanup that needs to be done. I smeared my thumb on the screen there, so it made a little kind of funky pattern there. Always remember, clean your product before you put it down on the paper. Wear some white cotton gloves. Honestly, it will save you a ton of time in Photoshop, because the cleaner the object is when you get it on the paper to photograph it, the less you have to do editing later in Photoshop. So like saying, if this was totally clean and it's ready to go and this is my product shot and this is what I'm going to shoot, and I cleaned it, I put it down on the paper, I propped it up with something, I only have to really do one of two things. I either cut the object out of the photo and put it on something else and give it a new home, or I Photoshop out the creases. So if you look at the middle top, you see the fold there a little bit. And then if you look at the left and the right, you got where the paper doesn't quite meet the other paper. So I'd have to Photoshop that out, find a good solid point or a line that I want to do that at, and then just pretty much magic eraser the thing and blend it in together so it's seamless. And that's basically how we would get seamless. So right there is a beautiful, beautiful raw shot of a product photo. If it was cleaner, it'd probably be a better one, so I didn't have to spend so much time in Photoshop. So I think I got one more of the cell phone. This is the open one, which I think I'm going to take into Photoshop here in a minute and show you a few things there. So here again, you can look at this and go, wow, there's really not too many seams. You really can't see the middle seam so much. And the right and left is, I framed it right. So there's very, very little to work with there. So I don't have to really work so hard in Photoshop with this one to get it cleaned up and ready to be put on a catalog page or whatever. I would have liked to have rotated this, but here's the idea. Your orientation doesn't necessarily matter. You can always take it into Photoshop or on your catalog and twist it and turn it and manipulate it and change the perspective a little bit, thus giving you the shot that you really want. So when you're shooting things like this, and this is where I'm going to try to figure out how to explain this. When you're shooting something like Mr. Woody, let me go back to the host here. Like Mr. Woody here, okay? We can shoot this way and get this look. But saying if Mr. Woody had hair, up here on the top, falling off the back, like somebody with long hair, and you want to make the hair look like it's falling to the side all the time, and you don't want to try to figure out how to do it with like glue and hairspray. Ugh. That's going to be bad, right? Well, we could think about the orientation. We can always twist the person on the side and shoot the picture this way, right? And the hair would always be falling this way. And it would look like, as long as the person can hold their posture properly, it would look like they were really this way. So when we reorientate it to the proper way, really, we know we shot it this way, but everybody else sees it this way. So how do you explain that? It's orientation. It's all about orientation. It's all about getting creative and thinking outside the box. How do I get my orientation the right way? So, whoops, wrong one. So again, I'm going to say this again, and I'm going to show this picture again here. This I'm going to turn on its head and bring it north and south or portrait. And that's how I want the shot to really be by the end of the day. And really that's what it's going to be, is for a product shot. But I shot it laying down because it was easier to shoot it laying down. Does that make sense? Should make sense. So let's take a couple more examples of things that I shot with this home studio. Here you got Mr. Shark. Rawr. And St. Martin here. It's it's a St. Martin shot glass. Here's one of the biggest tips I can give you. Clean your stuff before you actually shoot it. You can see the dust specks and the dirt and the marks on this. I should have cleaned it. I know I should have cleaned it, Mom. I know. Really, and that's, I hear my mother every time I do shots like these, because I can hear her, make sure you clean your shot glass, Philip. Yes, I know. And that's really where this kind of all kind of comes into play, is trying to pass on what knowledge and what experience I have of these things. And this is one of those shots where I say, clean your stuff very, very good before you put them down. And I think it's a good shot. It's very marketable. It's very usable. You can easily take it into Photoshop and start working with it. I also like this one, the 3/4 view. It minimized the specks of dirt a little bit, so it's a little easier to Photoshop those things out, but then it made the creases in the paper more predominant. So I have more work in one area, less work in another. So keeping that in mind, I like this shot. Rah, right? We could probably cut that out and make it into a symbol or something, be like, rah, 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 somebody, but whatever. But again, if this was going to be sold on eBay, I'd probably rotate it ever so slightly because I don't like the rim not being level. And I would get rid of the creases because I'd have to get rid of the 1-2 crease there, 1-2 crease there. Yeah. So really, it's a very easily manipulated shot into something that I'm going to use on eBay or Craigslist. And then I think I got one last shot, which is my SanDisk USB drive that I use for transporting photos. And this one, really don't have to worry so much about the seams because I didn't stand it up, but this is a shot that you could easily just take Photoshop, cut it out, you cut it out, and really it'd just be a cutout in place, and it really would be a clean cutout, very, very clean cutout, because the background is all one solid color. You could easily use the magic wand, grab everything, feather it by 1 or 2 pixels, and then invert it, and boom, you got your USB stick. You don't have to worry so much about, doing some fancy dancy kind of selection tool thing. So that's really kind of neat there. Let's see. Oh, okay. So setting up a home studio, let's get into, really the base concepts of setting up this home studio: directional light, orientation, where you put your camera. This is a great, I always come back to this diagram because this is really the best way to see it visually. As the light source comes from the left, the shadow falls on the right. Very simple thought process. A lot of times photographers forget that, where the shadow's falling, or, geez, I got this harsh shadow, I can't figure out where I'm getting all the shadow from. And some people just don't get it, that it's the light, where the light is, the orientation of light is how you get shadows. So reiterating that, in your small little studio product studio setup here, you really got to kind of think creatively and say, okay, what am I really working with? Where do I want my light source? Where do I want to put my stuff? Where do I want things to happen? Do I want to stay basic? Do I want to get fancy? Where do I want to be? Let's see. And then, of course, the last one, always remember when working with any type of light, reflective surfaces, lighter colors, paper, tinfoil, whatever, all have different intensities, but they all work the same as this diagram. As the light source comes in, it hits the light source and bounces off at an equal angle off the other side. So that is how we get this 3-dimensional look. Okay, and that's really the thing that I want to make sure that you understand, is when you're setting up a product studio, you don't want the pictures to go flat. You want to show that these are buttons. Oh, this is a coin. I want to show the relief of the coin, because people might not see the coin as well as they should if I don't give some good hard side lighting. So that's kind of a good thing to do with coins. It's like having really harsh side lighting. And this is a great studio setup for that particular setup. So there you have it. That's a really quick overview of a basic studio setup and how to do product shots. I'm going to make a few more comments here, I think. If my show notes scroll down a little bit. Yep. I will make one last really quick thought process here. Comment about, how to get the most out of your product studio. And really what I want to say is this is just like any other project. This is just like any other assignment. This is just like any other job. You take and you roll around the idea of what you want, and you plan, because that's really the big thing. If you plan it and you plan it well, you're going to have very successful shots. And I'm not saying you have to be perfect, but plan, at least come up with an idea, something to go by. I remember one of the, I should have downloaded that one, because that would have been a good picture to show. I remember one time I saw these pictures of droplets, and it was kind of a macro shot, very, very close to the liquid. And I couldn't understand why every time I tried to do water, okay, I would get the droplets, but unless the drop went high enough and I actually focused just on the drop, you really didn't see the drop. It was just kind of like this clear crystal ball that typically blended in with the background, until it dawned on me. And I said, well, geez, after I got done shooting all that water and doing all the water and trying to figure out how to light it and using all these different lights, and I spent hours trying to get this shot to work. Finally, I said, wait a minute. This is just, it's a problem with light. It's not a problem with the object. It's a problem with light. It's a problem with the object reflecting light. So I said, well, geez, self, what would I do in this situation? I said, well, geez, why don't we take and change the water to milk? I did that. All of a sudden, my drop pictures all of a sudden took on all the colors that I had. And I had this rainbow tie-dye dot or drop flying in the middle of the air, and it really came out neat. It was just all these little ripples, and each one had a little different color, and it was like tie-dye, and I'm like, now there we go. And that's what I wanted to see. That's what I was looking. That's what I had planned in my head. That's what I wanted to see. Get creative in developing good techniques. Get creative. Just plain get creative. You know, like that whole idea of laying the person on the side and letting the hair fall down, and you shoot at a different angle so that it looks like it was orientated vertically instead of landscape. You know, you can get this whole kind of neat thinking out of the box scenario. It's really kind of like working with a Rubik's Cube, you know, just kind of like, okay, this is what I want. Got it. Get out there, get creative. Well, you don't have to get out there, I guess. You can have your home studio and get creative. Learn your camera. One of the biggest things I can tell you, learn your camera, read the instructions, learn your camera. Whether you have a cell phone camera or you have an iPad, or whether you have an Android or you have a whatever, learn your camera. Go read the help file, learn your camera. Learn what accessories you can get, learn your camera. Read your instructions, learn your camera. That is one of the biggest things that helps so many people get from I'm frustrated and I'm tired of shooting to, wow, I love doing this. You know, I've seen some amazing people go from the light bulbs dim and about ready to just go out, and I'm done with photography. And all of a sudden that spark of creativity, all of a sudden something clicks somewhere, and boom, they are right back at the races going, okay, how do I make this happen? I think we're going to do this. I'm going to do that. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do a 52-week project, and I'm going to do it all on my product studio. Boom, do it. Okay, great. One of the other things that is of great magnitude would be the almighty duct tape. Okay. You can't really be anybody without having duct tape, right? So duct tape or gaffer's tape would be a lot better because it comes off cleaner. But some type of tape to hold things together, to get things to stand up, a little bit of wire, especially if you're working with rings, saying you want rings to stand up, you're going to need a little bit of wire to make that thing stand up. And then you Photoshop out the wire, get creative, put a little cloth down, put 2 holes through the cloth, wrap the wire around it, and then make like a little styrofoam holder for it. So the ring's kind of sitting straight up, right? So the ring stands straight up. You got a nice background. Boom. You got a beautiful shot. The only thing you got to do is clean up that wire, and you're ready to put it on eBay and sell that ring for twice as much as you would have gotten just describing it. I don't know. Not for sure. But, you know, better photography usually means better hits on somebody to buy what you're trying to buy. When do you go bigger and better? That was the other question in the email. Once you get, I really think the big thing here is once you get comfortable with using your stuff and you're using just some everyday common objects like paper and, the lighting you have around the house, when you start seeing how you shoot and how you want to shoot and what you want to shoot and how fast you need it, that's when you start getting into the bigger, better. Okay. And what I mean by that, saying you're only selling 2 products on eBay a week. Okay. You don't need a really big product studio. You don't need an acrylic product studio shooting table. You're not shooting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 100, 1,000 pieces in a day. You're only shooting 5, maybe. Okay. It's all about volume, need, and really looking at your situation. Maybe you want a little better light because you're really thinking about stepping up your game a little bit. Well, buy a little better light. Go buy one. Hey, I'm okay with that. But don't just go out willy-nilly and buy all this stuff and then build like this $5,000 studio just to shoot 5 products a day. Makes no sense. I've heard that a couple times. Well, I got into eBay selling, but I didn't make enough money at it because my product studio was too expensive. Now, how dumb does that sound? I know, that does sound dumb, doesn't it? I guess I shouldn't say that out loud, I guess. I don't know. Cheers. So, I think that's really the big thing about when do you make it bigger, better, bolder, whatever. So, a little recap real quick. Home studio, real simple setup. Let's go grab it one more time here. So you can have a simple home studio setup just like this. You got a base, you got a background, you got a reflector, you got some light sources. That's it. Put your products in the middle there. put them a little bit away from the background as far as you can, but it doesn't have to be real far away. That way you can blur out the background as much as possible so the creases are easier to blend. But really, that's as simple as it gets right there. Right there. Done. All right. So as you saw in the slideshows, I had this photo here, and I can tell you I see 3 things wrong with it, and I really want to go reshoot it, but I'm not going to. I'm going to tell you right now, the reflective surface here, I didn't realize it was that reflective, and when I shot it, you can see that it's reflecting the image of the phone off here and then back into the camera. So you can see right here is the button that's here. So, you know, that kind of annoys me. I really think I would have wanted to make that all one solid color or all white. Would have taken a little more creative elbow grease to get there. Okay. I know I want to get rid of these creases. So a little crease here, a little crease there. And then we could always cut this out, but I think the exposure is pretty well done. I really think the big thing would be also trying to figure out a way to cut this out somehow and put something here, like maybe a photo of yours truly or something. That would be kind of neat. I don't know which way I'd want to go with this yet, but those are some ideas. So let's go into Photoshop and maybe play a little bit and show you how to really clean these up so that they're product shots. So let's see, Photoshop. We're in Photoshop. Look at that. And I'm going to zoom in here. I'm going to say, okay, let's zoom in a bit. And then I'm going to take and I'm going to move with the hand. I'm going to take and move my shot around a little bit here. So you see here, we got this one crease, right? I'm going to take and I'm going to grab a rectangle marquee tool. So I'm selecting this area. I'm not going to select any part of the phone. I'm going to select this area. Okay. I'm going to edit, copy it. And then I'm going to go edit, paste it. That way I have a whole nother copy of it sitting on the upper layer like this. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to figure out how to nicely blend it from one side to the other, which is probably the trick here, I guess. So what can we do? A couple different things. We can take the healing tool and give that a shot. So I'm going to make it a nice big brush here. I'm going to start right at the top and I go bloop, right to the other end like that. See what we get. And 3, 2, 1, and what do we get? Not bad. Made a little bit of a line there. More of a crease that I didn't really want. So let's shrink it up a little bit. And maybe just go over this line just a little bit more. Make sure we don't... Voila! Oh, almost. Maybe a little bit more here. Okay, I think this is good. Gonna get. All right, let's try it. Let's put it back into the picture, and voila, the crease is almost gone. Oh, almost. I know I say that with conviction, then I look at it again, and I'm like, no, not quite. Let's see. There's got to be a way to boop, 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 boop. You can draw over it with the hand or the spot fix tool several times until you get the look that you're looking for. Whoops. Having a little bit of problem with my mouse for some reason. There we go. And what I'm doing is I'm just kind of going to paint over it to try to blend it in so it kind of blends the crease right out. I think we almost got it here. Except for this area right there. Big strokes, and yeah, I'll take it. I think I'll take it this time. This looks good. So now we look at the crease. Yep, there's a change in tone there. Maybe a little bit more here. See what we get. Come on. There you go. I like it. I like it. I'll take it. So now, boom, that crease is gone, right? So now let's go over to this crease. Let's do the same thing. We're going to take and select, marquee select it. So we're going to, whoop, like so. Right there would be good, I guess. Edit, copy. Whoops. Got to get back on my base layer. Edit, copy the layer. Edit, paste. So I got a brand new thing. At any time, I can hide these upper layers that I've done edits to and go back to the original look and see if I'm doing a good job or not. And that's why I make these copies. That way I'm not destructively destroying something. Oh, where's Peter when I need him to correct my grammar? You get the point. I hope. If you don't, email me. I'll get you the point. The point is that I can make this edit happen, and I can do this like that, and go voila, and go, ew, that didn't look good, and I can just hide it, and I'm back to normal. Or I can bring it back, and that doesn't look good. So I'm going to hit edit undo. Now this crease, I'm probably going to have to do a little bit more manual editing, really, by the end of the day. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually use the clone stamp brush real quick. And I got to get moving here. And I'm going to take, and I'm going to make that same line, but I'm going to make it as hard as I can and straight as I can, but I'm going to do it right off this gray area just above that line. So right there. So I hold Alt, I get a target, I fire it. So that's what I'm going to basically clone stamp. And then start where I need to and bring it in along that line until I get close. Reclone stamp it and bring it in as close as I can to the phone without drawing on the phone. I gotta blend this a little bit more. Close enough, I think, except for that. I gotta really blend that back in. So let's see here. Let me grab it one more time, and I'm gonna go off the screen and just kind of. Close enough. Okay. Another neat technique, if you're really having a hard time getting creases out like that, you can always go filter, blur, and do a Gaussian blur, and blur the crud right out of it. Not too much. You don't want to see all the way through to the background, but you can really soften that blur up a little bit, and it still gives it a little bit of the background light, and voila, but not all of it. So there you go. So now it looks more like a seamless kind of connected piece of paper. Same concept goes for over here. We can do that over on the right of the picture. Same thing. We're gonna go grab our selection tool, and we're gonna grab it, and we're gonna select it like so. And we're gonna go edit copy. Whoops! I gotta remember, go back to the base layer, edit copy, edit paste, and now we're gonna work on this one. I really think all I'm gonna really do with this one is I'm probably just gonna take and stretch it. So I'm going to go Control T to do a stretch, and I'm just going to stretch it ever so slightly just to blur it out just a little bit. And I'm going to blur it with filter, blur, and see what we get here. Whoops, blur, Gaussian blur. And yeah, that's good enough. That's good. So now you can see the edges are kind of gone. I still got this one edge here I got to fix, but that could be pretty easy. Just, well, we can do that real quick. Multi-lasso. So go doink, 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 doink off the page. And right in like that, right? Well, that should be pretty easy to fix, right? We're going to patch it. So we're going to go click on the spot healing brush, go to the patch tool, and then drag this, whoops. Get back down on our base and drag it across to someplace where it's white. Boom. And see if it patches it nice. It should. It should. And there you go. It kept the tonal value, but yet patched it. Deselect. So there you go. I've just cleaned up this product shot. One last thing to do. I should probably crop it accordingly for whatever I'm working in. I'm going to crop this for, hopefully I still have it saved for my 1200 by 720. Yep, right there. So we're going to do that crop, and we're going to crop it as tight as we can. To try to limit the amount of exposure to those anomalies. And voila. And bring this right back in. I'm going to say file save because it's time to close the show. And JPEG. And save. Okay. Now I could have always also done a few things with, like, you know, doing like a exposure or curves. Some people are like, well, you can always do the curves until you blend it right out, right, Phil? Well, absolutely. I mean, I can bring this right up with the curves up until I hit a point, and then bring a little bit of an S curve back, just to bring some of the tone back. And you notice it's almost gone. The creases are almost gone just by themselves. But, you know, you can do whatever you like. So there's a lot of different techniques for product shots to make them look better, clean up better, whatever the case may be. So there you go. I mean, we'll keep that one. I like that. That's pretty good. Save and JPEG and save over. Okay. So there it is in Photoshop. Let's take it back. Here's the original. I really should have cleaned it a little bit better. Of course, there's a few different options here. Your creases, so on and so forth. There, and there need to be fixed. I really want to fix this. Maybe that'll be next show. And then I turned it into, with a few edits, this. So it's closer. It's not quite a product shot yet. I think it needs a little bit more work, but it's pretty darn close for at least getting out there on eBay, and probably people can see that the buttons are halfway decent. Yeah, okay, I won't pay you $100 for that phone, but I'll pay you $50. Okay, bid on it. There you go. And that's really your objective, I guess, right? So there you have it. Start to finish, kind of a little product studio. Take some shots, took them into Photoshop, started editing them up so that they look better, so that you can put them on eBay, Craigslist, whatever you're going to put it on. Gave you a few techniques there. I'll probably continue this series in a sense. Maybe not every week. I don't know. We'll figure it out. That's why it's called The Babble, because it's just about babbling on about different techniques. So you should check us out every week. Wednesdays at 7 p.m. here live on fingerlinks1.com, fingerlinks1.tv. I'm Flipper. I'm your host for the Digital Babble. I love to get your emails. I love to see your photos. Please send them in. Email them to thedigitalbabble@gmail.com. Go check out our website at tdbny.com. Be sure to get out there and shoot. Get creative. Get out there and be one with whatever, or get in the studio and be one with whatever and have fun. That's what it's really all about, is having fun. So I will catch you next week, and I will catch you on the flip side.
A Flipside Studio production. It's the Digital Babble. Tune in every Wednesday at 7 p.m. on fingerlinks1.com. Check us out on Facebook and Twitter.